In the dead of night, when the moon is high, and ill winds blow, and the banshees cry, and the moonlight casts an unearthly glow, arise, my love, with tales of woe.
Good evening. It is 12 midnight, the paranormal hour. Welcome to Ghost. I'm your host, Chief Lawson. Ghost is a podcast to discuss all paranormal and parapsychology subjects. You can find Ghost on all major formats, so tell your friends, tell your family. Come listen to Ghost. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ghost. It is the midnight hour. And this is our last full broadcast for the year 2023. So, tonight's topic is Lywd, the Gray Mare. And our co-hosts for this evening are Jennifer Verne, research manager and podcast producer.
Good evening.
And Heather Lawson, case manager and podcast director.
Hello.
So, our story tonight leads off with a bit of a song. And that I'm going to turn over to Jennifer.
Here we come a-bustling among the leaves so green. Here we come a-wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you a wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. And then another one we have is bring us some figgy pudding. Oh, bring us some figgy pudding. Bring us some figgy pudding and bring it right here. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. We won't go until we get some. So bring it right here.
Second verse, same as the first.
Right?
Yeah. Welcome, folks, to our first musical.
So we all know these.
I wonder if we can add the song to the broadcast.
Oh, we could. Do you think that would be worthwhile? Let's add the song. We'll
Yeah,
add the song,
maybe.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. Okay, all right.
Hope we don't hit any trademarks, right?
Yep.
You sung it beautifully, but I think maybe we should add the whole thing.
There
so
we
people
go.
can hear the whole thing.
Yes, because there are so many more verses in that song
Yeah.
that are going to pertain what we talked to tonight.
Oh.
So these are common Christmas carols that we've all
Grown
sung,
up with.
right?
Yeah,
grown
yeah,
up
most
with.
certainly, yeah.
The vision of a Dickensian English Christmas
Sure.
is the Englishmen and women going around in cold, snowy nights through the streets
Bundled
of London,
up. Yeah.
singing, right?
Yeah.
Singing carols,
Yeah.
making merry. It's synonymous with what Christmas time is, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least here in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yes.
For our Australian listeners, we know Santa's on a surfboard catching some waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So another thing that's common in Yuletide, as we have discussed this season over the past couple of episodes, are more scarier, foreboding creatures that lurk in the dark of winter, right?
Yes, most certainly.
Yes, yes. So today's guest is a little bit more fun, a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, but no less colorful and probably more ancient in origins.
Yes.
She's quite scary to look at.
Closer to home.
Yeah, yeah, but she's quite welcome as well. Okay, this is the Lywd, or the Gray Mare, as we already stated. Oh, I just read that again. Okay.
That's okay.
So, I'm not a Welsh speaker, obviously. I'm from Midwest America,
I don't think
right?
any of us are.
There we go.
No. I'm Scottish. I'm not even good at Gaelic.
Yeah, so the Lywd is Marilwyd. I've also heard one of the people I listen to, a doctor of Welsh language, say it as Ifari Lywd. Ifari Lywd. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a wassailing folk custom. Here we come a wassailing, right? So wassailing, I think, is singing, and
It's not the same as caroling.
it's similar.
Somewhat,
I think it's
yeah.
similar to
It's
caroling.
the
Similar.
original rap battle.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going to get to. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
It is the original rap battle. Absolutely. So this is a folk custom found in South Wales.
Okay.
It's a wintertime tradition, and usually around the 12 days of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on our last episode, when you were talking about Krampus and St.
Yes.
Nicholas,
Yes.
and we were talking about December 5th through December 25th. And then I thought, the 12 days of Christmas. But not really, because we have 12 days of Christmas after Christmas
Yes.
and before the Epiphany, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, and before the New Year. So, really, around that time, the 12 days of Christmas can be at any point that Mary Lywd could be making
And
her
that's I'm
appearance.
counting the 13th day of the Feast of Fools. So there's
Right,
more involved
right.
there, yeah.
And typically, she really could be more of a New Year's tradition
Yes.
than a Christmas time tradition.
True.
The distribution of the Mary Lywd appearances was principally a custom associated with Glamorgan. The custom will stretch east into the valleys of Monmouthshire, and most easterly account coming from Monmouth itself. Now, this account is also one of the earliest. A number of examples are also found in Carmarthenshire, and there's a single account found in Brecknockshire and Ceredigion.
My God, you did well.
So thank you. I've been practicing all the Welsh.
She
all the
even
Welsh.
practiced before we
Play
got
well.
on air.
I did.
Aye.
But there is a single record of the custom, like I said, being performed in North Wales, and it's an example from Wrexham, which maybe a Glamorgan man brought the custom up with him when he moved north.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mary Lywd is a horse's skull, mount on a pole, carried by an individual hidden under a sackcloth. So kind of think of your hobby horse. You know, when you were growing
Okay.
up, had the horse's head on the stick,
Yeah,
and little boys
yeah.
ran around riding their horses. So picture that. So we got a white cloth draped over this skull. The skull could be real, usually, in the olden times, right? Now we have more paper mache or carved wood. But originally it was a real horse's skull bleached white. Sometimes in the jaw is hinged, so it can be clacked back and forth and can snap at people. Pieces of
Well,
glass.
isn't that fun?
Oh yeah, scary. You clack the jaw, clack, 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 clack. Pieces of glass were placed in the eye sockets for eyes. Now in modern day, people are starting to put Christmas ornaments, the Christmas ball ornaments hanging in the eye sockets. Yeah. Make it
Gets
more fun.
better.
And they swing.
Yeah. She's also dressed with festive lights and decorations. Back in the old days, I hate saying back in the old days,
Yeah.
but back in the past.
That could cover anything from 200 years ago to
Right.
20 years ago.
Right, exactly. Back in the past, she was probably dressed in the shawls and the ribbons of the townswomen,
Yes.
right? She is accompanied by an ostler, so a handler, and he's always dressed up very fine in like a top hat and overcoat, very, very well-dressed man. And then other folk characters like jesters and a lady. Sometimes there's going to be a fluter in the party or somebody making music, merrymaking, and they're going to go around as a group, tramping around. Kind of think of the mummers. You ever heard of mummers before?
Yeah, I didn't until we started researching this.
Yeah. So this is a group of friends and family who dress in disguise and visit homes within their community or neighborhood communities during the 12 days of Christmas. So I hadn't heard of a mummer specifically either.
Yeah.
So I went to the encyclopedia.com, and I found mumming. So it's an ancient folk ritual in Europe celebrating fertility, birth, and renewal during annual festivals such as Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, and Easter. They precede mumming in early America. It's a practice that matured into modern day. Some of the clearest parallels among these festivals are the use of costumes and masks, traveling from house to house, a salutatory chant made by a leader or captain,
Trick or treat.
without
Getting there,
a doubt,
Yeah,
trick or treat.
yeah. Getting there, yep.
Without a doubt. Right? And so keep that in mind, because when we get a little bit further on into what the Mary Lywd asks for, okay, here we go. So the origins of mummery can be traced back to Roman Saturnalia festivals in 400 BC. And I think a couple episodes ago we talked about Saturnalia, the Roman holiday of the Sun Festival. And it was 14 days of merrymaking and drinking and a bunch of other things we
All
can't
kinds
say
of
on this
stuff.
podcast, right? And of course, that is why when Christianity became popular, they took over Saturnalia, the festival of the sun, S-U-N, and turned it into Festival of the Sun, S-O-N.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a little bit of a transformation here with the Mary Lwyd as well, too. But these were organized parades developed with masked revelers in the 17th and 18th century in European villages. The colonial settlers then transplanted these traditions to America. Mummers would make noise, wear disguises to protect themselves from being recognized by evil spirits who could bring them bad luck.
Don't want them following you home.
Exactly why Halloween was, right? Mm-hmm. We're hiding from the evil. We're not creating evil with Halloween.
We're just hiding from what's already
from
there.
The evil. Yes. They would be disguised as trees, wheat stalks, animals, transfigure their faces with masks and makeup. Pure Halloween, guys. So, back to the Mary Lwyd. The first written record of Mary Lwyd is in J. Evans's book from 1800 called A Tour Through Part of North Wales. Although the tradition is best known for its practice in Glamorgan and Gwent, it has similarities to other hooded animal customs throughout Britain. There's the Hoodin in Kent and the Broad in Cotswolds, and something called the Old Tup in Derbyshire. And this involved a group of poor people trying to find food and money in the harshness of winter, right? Entertainment is their method, with a side portion of menace, right? This Mary Lwyd is going around singing at the doorsteps, demanding food and drink. That's what she's there for. She wants to get into the house, and she wants some food, and she wants some drink.
And she definitely wants to get into the house.
Yes. And so when the groups get to the house, they sing Welsh language songs, or wassails, more traditionally indulged in a ritual called pongo. And it's an exchange of rude rhymes with the person who lives there.
Yeah, yeah.
So again, like Heather said, the traditional rap battle. And it really, really was kind of the precursor to that.
Yeah.
Now, Mark Rees is a podcaster and author. And he has a podcast called The Ghosts and Folklore of Wales.
Ghosts and Folklore. Okay, Wales.
And it's one of my favorite podcasts.
You'll send me a link. I haven't heard that one.
I'm kind of a podcast addict. I mean... There's
an app for that.
Just like the app.
There's an app
Side tangent. There's a commercial about. I don't even know what the commercial is about because I laugh so much, and it's about the guy who listens to all the podcasts, and his coworker's drinking a glass of tea. He goes, "You like tea? Yeah. There's a podcast about that." And the whole thing is, "There's a podcast about," and my kids just laugh because they look at me. That is you, Mom. I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, Mark Rees is the first time I ever heard about the Mary Lwyd was through his podcast. And the Mary is well known to be mischievous, and she tries to steal things and chase people. Just kind of her and her gang go around to have a good time, right? And it's maybe said to have good luck for the year. So the modern day rap battle. What is a pongo? It's where you keep trading verses back and forth until one group fails to come up with a rebuttal.
It's kind of an insulting verse. It's not really...
It really can be.
Yeah.
The
they
more
can get
they
really
go,
nasty.
the more they go, the more nastier they can get. Yes. So you can either have scripted pongos that are passed down traditionally.
Yes.
You know, or you can have on the spur rap battles, back and forth and back and forth.
My understanding is the reason they scripted it was there was several fights that involved, which not that, the English, Welsh, or Scottish are fighting nation.
No,
but,
they're not known for that.
Not when it involves alcohol at all. Heavens no. But apparently there was several fights that broke out, so they scripted some to keep them from having those issues.
Well, I think that could be, but I also think that probably, especially when the Christian aspect of this comes into play,
that could
you
be.
had to follow a certain
criteria,
ritual almost,
yes.
Almost like a ritualistic. But I think that may have been more for the more religious aspects of this Mary Lwyd, and not the rambunctious
and this is a far reach, but this is the beginnings of caroling.
That's exactly why we start out with the carol, because I think this exactly started that emphasis on singing.
For years, and they don't do it any longer, but for years, the actual chanters of Murrah Shrine, the Shriners, that's one of the groups that sing. They would go down to the Circle, the Annapolis Circle, every year at Christmas, and they would sing there. That was one of their things. They would travel around the circle, and they would kind of circle around, and they would dress in this 1930s, 1920s era, the top hats, the long scarves, and they would carol all around the circle for like an hour, and they would sing different carols, and then they would appear on the stage and do that. And that, they don't do it any longer, but that's one of the neatest things in the world, because I went to, many years ago, I went to Pike High School, and I will say this for Pike, they have this wassailing ceremony where they come out, they sing. Now,
yes,
this is,
yes.
and they actually serve figgy pudding, they serve wassail.
They do like madrigal dinners. Yeah. Several of the high schools do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know they're not the only one.
Yeah.
But it was, it was very fascinating for me, and it was very entertaining. As long as I didn't have to sing, it was very entertaining. And it was just very neat. But I mean, these are celebrations, unfortunately, we've gotten away from, that I think are really, really cool. But when you go back to their actual basis, and when I've been over to England and visited the UK, it's always been during the summer. So we've never been there around Christmas time or anything along that lines. So I've never really thought to sit and talk with some of my friends over there about their Christmas traditions, and maybe we'll have to do that before next year. Maybe I need to reach out to some of my brothers over there and say, hey, look, I need some of this.
because this tradition is definitely Welsh. It is not English. It is definitely Welsh.
Yeah, you can tell the Welsh, just in the language alone.
Doesn't she come in and trash your house?
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah.
So not necessarily. So, like I said, they trade verses back and forth, and
depends on who wins.
It does depend on who wins. So, Mark has a example of a pongo in his podcast, and I am going to attempt to replicate that here. And that is why I was practicing before, because it is in Welsh.
They say, it
is in Welsh.
I was getting ready to volunteer to do one side, but I'm not now.
No. It says, Wadamen I duad, gevethian de nuad, e oven em ganad, e oven em ganad, e oven em ganad, e gani. And in English, that roughly translates, well, here we come, innocent friends, to ask leave, to ask leave, to ask leave to sing.
Oh.
So that would be the opening salvoy of a pongo. And then it would go on from there. The house would say, oh, no, we can't let you in. It's been too rough of a year. We're too poor. We don't have enough to share. Yes. You must go away to the next house. Oh, no, please, you must let us in. Back and forth and back and forth. And then the insults could start. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So typically, if the Mary Lywd group wins, they get in, and they should be offered beer and cakes of some sort.
Yes.
If the household wins, the Mary Lywd group has to move on.
Yes.
Now, I would be wary of letting the Mary Lywd lose. Not many accounts of the Mary Lywd losing, so I don't really know what would happen.
Yeah.
But kind of like a trick or treat.
Probably wouldn't be good.
You might want to give them the treat because you may not want the trick.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, very
There's
true.
stories of them coming in and not tearing up. Your
No,
house,
but certainly
knocking stuff over. And,
Well, so that kind of moves on to maybe some of the more ancient.
And, leaving your house not exactly how you like it.
Not necessarily, and I think maybe in later iterations that could have been the case. So they come in, you give them their cakes and their beer and whatever. And usually you put a little coin in their purse.
Yes.
So you're going to give them a little silver for their pouch.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to get back to that about trashing the house.
Okay.
Because there might be reason behind that.
Okay. Now that I'd be interested in, because I've heard about the fact that they trash homes if they get in.
Yes. So we mentioned that the first writing is in the 1800s, but how old does this tradition really go back?
Okay.
And the numbers say that it can go all the way back to Roman times or before.
Oh, really? So you're back in the Centronella again.
Or even Celtish.
Even earlier, before that.
We're going to maybe go back to Celtish. Okay?
Okay.
So early folklorists have examined the topic, and they think that it is a pre-Christian religious rite.
Okay.
Okay? Though scholarly support for this is really not there's no supporting evidence,
Non-existence,
they
yeah.
say. Okay, so the absence of late medieval references to such a practice and various British hooded animals, they think it's more derogative of 16th or 17th century for these hobby horses and all this,
Yes.
Social elite stuff.
Sure.
Well, I don't think so. I don't
Okay.
think so. After researching it more and listening to Mark's several podcasts on it,
Yes.
and then I also came across a Dr. I cannot pronounce her name because it is Welsh. Dr. Gwen Morris Baird. Okay, that's the best as I can do.
I have a good friend. His last name is Baird. Is it spelled B-A-I-R-D?
It's just like Laird, only Baird.
Yeah, okay.
But he's a
Yeah.
hyphenated name, so it's Morus. Morse.
I believe you're
Not
pronouncing
Morris,
it correctly.
but Morris Baird.
Yeah.
And his first name is Gwilyn. I think it's Gwen. Gwen.
Okay.
Anyway, he is a Welsh podcaster.
Okay.
And having listened to them, I really think that these origins go much, much further back.
Okay.
So let's look into that a little bit.
Okay.
So the origins of the Mary Lwyd name are deeply mysterious. One Welsh translation is the grey mare, like we've said, and it connects to the heritage of pale horses in Gaelic and British mythology.
Okay. And that's interesting because that
right?
sends us in a new direction. Yes.
Yes, it does, because many
Yeah.
can cross over to the underworld.
Yes.
Another version of the Mary Lwyd is the Mari Lwyd. Now I put a th because
Yes.
it's LLWYD. And according to Mark, when you put LL together, it goes a Lwyd. So the Mari Lwyd means
Okay.
gray death.
Oh, great death.
Okay.
Okay.
Others have tried to claim that it's Gray Mary
Yeah.
and invoke more of a
Now,
Christian
I've seen that
leaning.
written. Yeah, I've seen it written that way.
Okay,
yeah.
so these are more of the Christian leaning, and this
Okay.
is when I think maybe the church does not want their their parishioners doing these Celtic pagan rituals.
Mainly
right?
pagan. They don't want any pagan rituals.
They don't
Yeah.
want these
No.
fertility rituals, all of this ritualistic
Yeah.
pagan ways.
Yeah.
So they try to whitewash everything Christian,
Sure.
right? So some scholars actually link her to a legend connected to the nativity story.
Okay.
A pregnant horse is sent out of the stables when Mary arrives to have Jesus. She spent dark days roaming the land trying to find somewhere new to have.
Yeah, her
baby, right?
mares, yeah.
So
Her
one
foal.
song that Dr. Morris Baird found says, "The pretty mare is starving and the little ass about to collapse from wanting some succor to keep them alive. Give them something to comfort them." So this could actually reference Mary on her horse.
Yeah,
You
could
need to
be.
find a place, let her into your
Yeah.
stable, give her food, give her lodgings, that
Yeah.
sort of thing, right? It fits very well with the Christian theme. That's
Sure.
wonderful. Many Mary fans believe the character to have come from pre-Christian pagan, like we've been talking
Yeah.
about, right? It's impossible to prove. It
Sure.
really is impossible. But let's look back to the 400s and 700s, okay?
Sure. Okay.
And we can find references to similar traditions associated with horses to death and fertility rituals.
Yes.
Okay? So the Welsh and Englishmen liked to dress as animals.
Sure.
In the 7th century, the Archbishop of Theodore complains about this. He doesn't want people going around dressed as animals. And he writes,
Well, there's people in the Hellfire Club that did that as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So Dr. Morris Baird has found a writing of this Archbishop of Theodore.
Yeah.
And it says, "If anyone goes about as a stag or bull that is making himself into a wild animal and dressing in the skin of the herd animal and putting on the heads of beasts, those who are in such ways transform themselves into the appearance of a wild animal, penance for 3 years, because this is devilish."
Wow.
So we already know they
We
were
got a
doing
connection. There's the connection.
right. There's a connection. So Dr. Morris Baird's podcast, The Celtic Source, like I was saying, he's a Welsh speaker first and foremost. That's his first language, and he's a folklorist, and he has a degree in Welsh literature. I tried to look up his sources, but I couldn't find them. But I may not have access to as many resources
Well,
as he
if we
does.
need them for some reason, I can reach out to the brothers overseas, see what I can find.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would have loved to have found the original source for this archbishop. And it's also believed that, I didn't write down his name. And now I can't remember.
Happens
Anyway.
to the best of us.
I know, right? It just completely went out.
Yes.
Completely went out. But let's look at that horse culture and
Yes.
death,
Well, they
dying,
were closely
fertility.
attached with death and fertility.
Yes. So this
The
Mary
pale horse.
Lywd is a skull. And
Yeah.
could it hide a darker meaning, like a gray death,
There's
right?
there's a poem about the gray mare, and it's English, not
Mm-hmm.
Welsh. It's either English. I know it's not Scottish. It's not written Celtic or in Gaelic. But I can't remember. But it deals with that. And anybody out there, any of our listeners, post it on Facebook if you
Yeah.
remember what it's called. Then of course there's the old gray mare, but that has nothing to do with this. But
You know what? I think in my little adventure to Half Price Books this morning before coming over,
Yeah.
I picked up a book and was flipping through, and I remember something about gray mare.
Yeah, there's a gray.
Yeah.
There's a story, and I
Yeah.
can't remember. It's been too many years ago, but I think it may tie into this.
Yeah. So, gray death, grim reaper, right? The idea
Yeah.
of death and rebirth. This is a New Year's tradition, right? End of Christmas, New Year's tradition. The dying of the old year. We're bringing in a new year, right? Could it be a pagan fertility ritual with the skull dressed up in the shawls and the ribbons of the women of town, right? And the men are clambering these guys about. The Mary Lywd also had a rowdy bunch of companions. Think a la Punch and Judy, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Or in Welsh, Judy would be Suan.
Yes.
She was called Suan in Welsh. They would enter the house with a broom and sweep out the hearth. Okay? They would
Yes.
tear out the old in your house. They would destroy the old to make way for the new.
Okay.
Okay?
Renovation crew on the move. Yeah.
Right, right. And I think that maybe over time, that
Or better yet, demo
ritualistic
crew.
symbolism of sweeping out your hearth, sweeping out the old spirits, sweeping out the evil from the year, getting ready for the new year, turned into more of a trick or treat Halloween destruction,
Yeah,
chaos.
yeah.
Right, right.
Devil's Night in Detroit, folks. There you
Right.
go, all over again. Yeah.
But the horse has a special place in the Celtic tradition in terms of fertility and other parts of the world. I mean, horses are traditionally known as symbols of fertility.
Sure.
In Welsh folklore tradition, after a marriage, the bride and groom were to ride a horse home.
Yes. For the possibility of good, fertile.
The
Yeah.
groom should never steer the horse home. You
Yeah.
need to let the horse have its head and take you home.
Yeah.
If you don't, it will be a bad sign for your fertility of your marriage.
Yeah.
You will be infertile. So it's important that the groom allowed the horse to lead them on their way. And horses' skulls have been used in early days for the Mary Lywd, were kept from year to year.
Yes.
Okay, and they are prized and they're cared for. Horses are
It's a big thing.
yeah, they're a sense of symbol of pride and wealth, right? If you
Yeah.
have a horse, you're wealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in some of these Welsh villages, the parishioners would keep the skull.
Yeah.
A single family would be responsible for it and would
Mm-hmm.
care for it every year. Sometimes they're kept in the pub. Where the youth, the men of the village
Yeah,
would keep
yeah,
that
yeah.
and take care of it and then bring it out.
Be put in a place of
Right,
honor.
right.
Yeah.
Many times, though, it is safely buried into the land and then
really?
dug up again. So,
Well,
why-
there's one I haven't heard. Yeah.
okay, but doesn't it make sense if it's a fertility ritual?
Yeah.
That you would bury that,
Ground it.
it would gather all of this energy from the
Yeah,
Mary Lywd
yeah,
ritual,
yeah,
and you would plant that back into the earth,
Sure.
right, to fertilize and re-energize your land
Yeah.
for the next year. I think that that's pretty compelling in my own
That's pretty
opinion.
good. Yeah.
So the Mary Lywd traditions seemed to die out about the 1930s. However, Dr. Morris Baird does have a film recording of a Mary Lywd
Yes.
tradition from the 1950s. So we
Okay.
know it's been constantly going on. Just it's probably kept quieter and more
Yeah,
subdued. Just
more
sort of a
to certain
village
areas.
thing, right?
Yeah. Most
But
certainly.
again, just like
Yeah.
Krampus, and we've heard a resurgence, thanks to the internet, things are getting out
Yeah,
and things
yeah.
are being
Things are
yes
rebirthing, we'll say.
And the Welsh have really taken on the Mary Lloyd again and
Oh, yeah.
really made it a Welsh tradition. It is very
Well,
Welsh.
I think more and more people with the advantage of the internet and everything, they're getting back to the cultural roots.
Yes.
You're starting to see more rebirth and proud of culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mother, I will forget when I explained to her that all of our research and everything in the family had found out, and I'd actually found other family members that are named Lawson that was a sept to McLaren that were Scottish. She looked at me very clearly and says, "I always thought we were Irish." I think it was because her father drank a lot. But anyway, that was her whole synopsis on the situation. But as people start to research this, I wear a kilt to many events. I'm very active with I'm a fellow of the Scottish Society, and I mean, we do a lot of things, and I mean, I really celebrate that. I think most people do.
You celebrate your traditions. You really do. And I think that you change and incorporate new traditions into existing traditions to fit
to make it work.
Your particular situation.
Well, and Heather
or
being
your
Hispanic,
culture.
I mean, we every Halloween we bring in the Day of the Dead. We make an altar. We put pictures of our relatives on it. We bring in Hispanic traditions to try to merge that in with Scottish traditions, and I think that I think that everybody celebrates that.
If you're in a Welsh village, with,
yes,
and Celtic heritage or Irish heritage or whatever, and you have your fertility rituals going on every year.
Sure.
And then Christianity comes along and they change that and they morph that. And then this is happening in Wales. Mm-hmm. And the Welsh and the English are very separate when it comes to their culture. The
and
Englishmen,
they'll let you know.
Oh, yes, they will.
Yes, they will. They will. Dr. Morris Baird even is very cognizant of the fact that the modern day Mary Lloyd situations that are happening, they really want them to stay in the Welsh community.
Yes.
Anybody is invited to join them.
Sure.
But don't start your own.
Yeah.
As an Englishman coming in, don't start your. You need to be part of the Welsh.
So they're proud of their heritage. And you can understand why.
But you can see how maybe the English took the caroling and took it over into England proper, and did the caroling and the going around.
Become the Dickens legendary kind
and if you go
stereotype.
Further into that, Here We Come Wassailing, it talks about giving coin. And put a coin in my purse.
The original, it actually has that word. It's kind of funny, here in the United States, people don't believe this, but there's still a north-south division. If you go down to Tennessee,
there is,
and I remember the first time I took the trip to Gatlinburg, I got down in Sevierville, and I couldn't figure out how this town was pronounced. I heard 4 or 5 different people pronounce it differently. So I was in a Walmart, and I think this is ironic all in all, but anyway, I'm in a Walmart, and I asked this cashier, she's my age, maybe a hair bit younger, older, I don't know, but anyway, I said, "How do you pronounce this city's name?" And I swear to God, she looked at me and says, "Are you from the north or the south?" And I go, "What the hell difference does that make?" She says, "A lot. Are you a Yankee or you from here?" And I go, "Well, I guess I'd be a Yankee. I'm from Indiana." She's, "Oh yeah, you're an Yankee." And I go, "Okay." I go, "Well, how
most Yankees
can you
consider Indiana people?"
Yeah,
no,
I don't know, but I'm going along with the process. And she goes, "Well, you would pronounce it Sevierville." I said, "Sevierville," and she says, "Yeah, that's what most of them up there pronounce it." She says, "Down here, where we Southerners live, we pronounce it Sevierville." And I said, "Sevierville." And she says, "Yes." I said, "Okay." I said, "I've heard some other people pronounce it incorrectly." And she says, "Well, they're just ignorant."
Oh Lord.
Okay, good to know. We have a linguist here working at Walmart. Anyway, but
so I think over the past 3 episodes we've done through November and December, you can really see how cultural influences and religious influences change tradition through the years, and you pick in your parcel, like the trick-or-treating. Halloween didn't start here in the States until,
well,
late
one thing
1800s,
I didn't
early
actually
1900s, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that was purely a conglomeration and pulling of other, and like I said, people think that Halloween is a pagan, and it's not. I mean, Samhain exists.
Yeah, Samhain
but
is different.
It is a totally different animal altogether.
Well, I think that so many people have made it work, we'll say. They've taken their cultures or the cultures they want to be a part of and made it work.
Right.
You know, before Hi and Heather had married, I had never thought about a Day of the Dead altar. And now we make a Day of the Dead altar.
Right.
And I'm very much into that. I'm very, very, we have this lovely statue. It belonged to her late mother, the Mother Mary. Now, we're not Catholic, but I don't have a problem at all putting that up. It's not a problem.
I'm not Catholic.
No.
Right.
And so,
Right.
But it's a beautiful statue.
it is,
Right.
and it's part of
Absolutely.
the celebration. And I think the problem is most people don't realize the celebration is a celebration of those that have passed and moved on. It's a family thing.
Yeah, Dia de los Muertos, of course.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean-
I'm not Hispanic at all, but my son made a little altar for his great granny.
Yeah,
Aw.
and
You
that's
know?
cool. That's cool.
I mean,
yeah, it goes back to remembering family, and
nothing
I mean,
should be stagnant. Everything
Yeah.
should change.
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Everything
think
should
so.
change, and we should embrace everything and,
I think so.
make the best of it. And
And that's it. I
know,
really
enjoy
truthfully
it.
believe that's the way. Now, one thing I'll say about this is New Year's Eve has gone so many different ways. Of course, Old Lang Syne, and a lot of people don't know. Do you know who wrote Old Lang Syne?
I do not.
Ah, it's a Scottish lad, a very famous Scottish lad. Honey, you should know this. We celebrate these.
Oh, he put you on the spot.
Yeah, I
Heather.
did, didn't I? I put it right on the spot.
Robert Burns?
Yeah, Robbie Burns.
There you go.
Our Scottish son, Robbie Burns. Yeah, she's so happy. She got it. She gets the bonus round. Anyway, here we go.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
yeah, bonus. Yeah,
Bonus
no,
round.
no. Yeah, Robbie Burns. It's a Scottish tradition to sing Old Lang Syne, and this is a poem wrote. He also, which is probably one of the most famous unknown or unattributed phrases. If you want to come to anything, bring your wife or bring your girlfriend. Don't bring
Don't
both.
bring both.
Yeah, yeah. That was Robbie Burns. That could be an episode all its own. He's one of the Scottish's sons, and I tell you what, we go every year in January. We celebrate St. Andrew's Day, and we read a lot of Robbie Burns' poetry. And these things are really, in my mind, they make me very happy because the children are reliving things that need to be brought back.
Right.
It's part of our
Right.
cultures that have been lost, and I think they need
Right.
to be brought back. I think they need to be celebrated.
And I think it's so important to know
Yeah.
or try
Understood
to
is
figure
the
out
biggest
where
thing.
they came from and
Yeah.
figure out where they and where the
And what they
origins
stand
are
for.
and why they were
Yeah.
started.
What do they stand for?
You know,
Why are they here?
The reasons may no
Yeah.
longer exist, but it's always interesting to find out why,
Yeah.
so you can understand the evolution of
The
something.
education of it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, it's like Day of the Dead. I mean, I've been in Mexico numerous times, but I've never been there during that period of time. This is a big thing. I mean, it celebrates family. If you look at a lot of the core regions and reasoning, it's really neat. It truly, truly is.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right.
So that's the Mary Lywd, and we'll put up a picture of the Mary Lywd on the webpage so you guys can show it because
Yeah.
she is quite something to look at.
Yes.
She really, really
Yes,
is.
she is. So, from all of us here at Spirit, we wish you a happy new year, and we hope your year is the greatest of all. So, from us at Spirit and Ghost to Ghost, happy new year, and that is all we have for this evening.
Today's ghost story of the day is from A Ghost a Day by Maureen Wood and Ron Kolick. Tintern Abbey, Tintern, Monmouthshire, Wales. Walter de Clare, Lord of Chepstow, on the banks of the River Wye, founded Tintern Abbey. In 1349, bubonic plague swept through the area, killing many monks and perhaps explaining the disappearance of the neighboring village of Pinterry. Today, the abbey and St. Mary's Church lie in ruins, deserted except for the ghosts. Nocturnal visitors have reported hearing the somber sound of chanting and witnessing the processions of torch-bearing spectral monks. The most terrifying story associated with the abbey speaks of a group of men who went into the abbey's orchard in search of antiquities. After a day's labor, they had dug up 2 skeletons. That night in the church, they celebrated, drinking heavily and taunting the spirits of the monks. The skies grew dark. A heavy wind came up. Lightning flashed about the area. Soon an eerie mist began to swirl around them. Out of the mist came a knight. Other figures emerged, hooded men and the white-robed monks of the monastery. The ghostly knight raised his arms, pointing toward the doorway of the abbey. The men, scattering in fear, left what they'd brought behind. It is said that they did not stop running until they reached the next village. Since that day, few dared to dig on the abbey's grounds, fearing that they too might raise the wrath of Lord Strongbow, the Earl of Pembroke, and the Protectorate of Tintern Abbey.
Thanks for listening to Ghost. Again, I'm your host, Chief Lawson. You can find Ghost on all major formats on the 15th and 30th of the month at midnight. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, maybe have a question or subject you'd like to ask about on air, or be used on the show, please email us at ghosttoghost@spiritindiana.com, ghosttoghost@spiritindiana.com. I want to thank my production staff on Spirit, Jennifer Verne, our research manager and our producer, and Heather Lawson, our trainer on Spirit and our podcast director, for helping make these podcasts possible. My chief of staff, Andrew Brooks, for his guidance and help on the scripts, and everyone else involved. Thank you so much. See you next time. Until then, stay safe and remember the truth is out there. Good night. Ghost to Ghost podcast and its contents is the property of Spirit Paranormal Ltd., all rights reserved. We welcome you to download and play the podcast and share with others for personal use. You may not, except with written permission, use or distribute its contents for commercial use. Spirit Indiana Paranormal, covering the Hoosier State since 2002, Indy's oldest parapsychology investigation group. If you're experiencing what you believe to be paranormal issues, reach out to us for help at www.spiritindiana.com or call our hotline at 317-883-9103. Again, that is www.spiritindiana.com or our hotline at 317-883-9103. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself and the ones you love, and be safe out there.